Let me ask you a very difficult question, which you will find it very hard to answer, especially if you had to give this answer in front of others, because the answer that you give to this question will get you exposed, judged, vilified, or villainized by others, and sometimes it can actually backfire. And the question is simply this: what do you do with your parents when they get old, become toxic, become a liability, become, irritating, nagging, and they kind of destroy your peace of mind? What do you do with them? Do you, suddenly get rid of them and then say that was the best thing to do? Do you use logic and say, listen, I need to work, I can't take this nonsense? And do you expect people to understand? Or do you use emotions and say, they were there for me when I was young and helpless? Mothers, they always use this dialogue: I carried you in my womb for 9 months. Fathers will say, I looked after you when you were a small little baby, and today this is what you do to me. So what is the right answer? What is the right stance to take? In this video, I'll give you real life examples, two actually, whereby clients have opened up to me and they gave me their version of what was going on in their life, and I'll share with you what was the solution that I recommended to them. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, right off the bat, I'm very sure people who do not like my point of view, or they don't like me, or they don't like my personality, they will say, oh, so when you're old and you're irritating, let me guess, it is okay for your daughter or for your wife to kick your ass and throw you on the streets. Now, I would be a liar if I just tell you, yeah, of course, yeah, you should kick me out on the streets, because it's very easy to say. But the question is, when you reach that stage, if you get thrown out on the streets and you don't have money, you don't have energy, you don't have the vitality that you had, and you're really old, what do you do? Yeah, if you have lots of money, yeah, you can go to an old age home, you can pay someone to take care of you, or you can even have a harem of beautiful women. Like some old men have this fantasy: I'll have hot girls and hot nurses take care of me, and I'll have the world class facilities, nothing to worry about. Yeah, that is in a perfect world if you have lots of money. But if you are a simple person, if you are an average bloke or average human being, you have just enough money to survive. What do you do, especially when you become old, irritating, nobody wants you, nobody likes you, your children are now young and they're doing their own thing, and they look at you as a headache, they look at you as irritating. So if I can tell people, yeah, kick your parents out when they are old and irritating, shouldn't the same formula apply to me? So I'll give you my straightforward, honest answer. I don't know about you, but I personally told my wife, the day I become a liability, the day me, Loy Machedo, becomes a liability, where I'm on a wheelchair, I can't move, I'm just like, head tilted to one side and mucus is just drooling out, and there are tubes from my nose and tubes from my rear end, and food has to be put in, and the waste has to go out through a tube, and I'm just totally under your mercy. I'm like a vegetable. I've sincerely and seriously told my wife, better I die. I don't want to live like that. And in fact, my wife has told me the same, because that is not a life worth living. In fact, I'm very envious of certain countries that have legalized euthanasia, because if you are in so much of pain that life becomes not just a chore to live, life becomes so horrible to live that every breath you take is painful, it's better not to exist. I know there are religious people from Abrahamic faiths like Christians and Muslims. God gave you this life and God this thing. I don't want to get into that. You can apply that God principle to your life. But for people like me who are, I don't know, skeptic atheists, or who are very practical in life, all this God it sounds good. But when you have to go through pain to live every day, where you can't even breathe without it paining, it's not worth living. I'm not recommending you to follow and accept my beliefs. I'm telling you what I believe, okay? And it's not, some people say, oh, you are being a coward, oh, this is an easy way out. No, there's nothing easy about it. It's very, very difficult to give yourself a reason to live, especially when times are very, very hard. Now, I'm not proposing that, oh, okay, you end your life. No, that is not the solution. But there are times where, there's just no solution. For example, in my previous video, I covered about a girl who had no arms, no legs, but she's an inspiration. Her name is, I'll give you her name. Her name is Payal Nag, Payal space Nag. She's an 18-year-old para archer. She doesn't have hands, doesn't have legs. She lost them when she was 8 years old. Her parents didn't know whether they wanted her alive, whether it was worth living. Her relatives suggested poison this small little child, let her die, because you're forever going to be depending on others. Now, in her case, she chose to live. In her case, she had the courage to live, and today she has achieved gold. Now, that is a very inspirational story. Even if you watch the video of Nick Wojcik, Nickv, I'll give you the exact spelling so you can check him out. He has inspired me so many times. His name is Nick space V for victory, UJICIC. Okay, Nick Wojcik, get back up. He's also no arms, no legs, but he decided to fight and live. Because when you have no arms, no legs, and there's one content creator, it's a transgender female, actually a guy who identifies as a female. He's without arms, without legs. He makes tutorials on YouTube about, I think it's Brazilian, about makeup, about cooking food and all that. I admire these people, but do you think it's easy? Do you think it is everyone's cup of tea, that everyone has this capacity to live? So coming back to the topic, which I was talking to you about parents. When you become old, you and I become old, when our parents become old, we become something like this, where we depend on others to help us. We depend on them to earn money for us, feed us, take care of us, look after us. It's like how you looked after someone when they are a baby. So now the question begets, they looked after you when you are young. Now, do you look after them when they are old, when they need you, when they become like a baby, cranky, irritating, toxic? Now, the thumb rule is, or in a perfect world, yes, you must. But then what happens is, if the person is so irritating, so incorrigible, so horrible to be around that you can't tolerate the individual, or you can't bear it. Real life incident, won't reveal the identity of the person. I know this person very well, extremely well. Both his mother and father, they have become so irritating, so toxic, so unbearable, okay, that he had to actually stop working, and he ended up in depression, and he sought medical help, that is psychiatric, both psychiatric help and psychiatrist for 2 years for him to get out of depression. It affected him so badly. He was not able to earn. Thankfully, his wife was there to take care of him and help him bounce out of this depression. Why? Because he was earning. He was taking care of his mother and father. He was, literally doing everything in his power to provide for them, but they were never happy. They were always ungrateful. They were always complaining. They were always bitching. They were always moaning. They were always complaining. They were always irritating him to a point where he literally couldn't breathe, like they wouldn't let him sleep. They wouldn't let him work. They wouldn't let him have breakfast in peace. Until he would go to work, they would keep nagging him. And when he would come back from work, they would keep nagging him. He completely collapsed. He had to be hospitalized. And then, on the advice of the psychiatrist and psychologist, he now stays away from his mother and father. He provides for them, but stays away from them because he has to take care of his mental health. And his wife is helping him, nurturing him to get out of this depression. And just imagine, he was not able to work for 2 years because of this. So what advice would you give someone like him? Would you tell him, no, you have to take care of your parents no matter what? They took care of you when you were small. Boss, he completely collapsed, completely broke down. He is not able to go to work, and is hardly in his, I think, late 30s, early 40s. So very easy to give a person like this advice. In fact, his parents are so irritating. None of the relatives, none of the friends, nobody wants to associate with them. They're that toxic. Now, that was one example. Let me give you another example, real life. This is a woman who is in her 50s, 50. She has taken care of her mother and father. They are in their 80s. We are talking of 80s and 90s, that kind of age. But her parents, once again, are so toxic, whereby they are never appreciative, always complaining, always demanding, always, wanting more, everything more attention, more time, more money, more whatever. And this woman, who is 50 years old, has given up everything in her life to take care of these parents. So much so, where she finally called me up. She's my client, long term, and she broke down. And she said, Loy, I just don't know what to do anymore. She said, I just dread coming home, because we'll end up with nothing but their drama, their dialogues, the complaining, the moaning, the depression. She's saying, my children don't want to be at home around them. My husband can't tolerate them. I can't take them. He's saying, it's just like they only stay in the house. None of us are there. What do you want? What would you advise someone like her? How would anyone advise? So I told her, see, listen, this is the logic I give people, especially with such problems. I said, when you're swimming, let's say you're drowning in water, you and other people. If you can't swim and keep yourself afloat, how would you help others to keep themselves afloat? So if in your case, if it's driving you into depression, driving you where you lose your peace of mind, where you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't go to work, you can't do anything, I mean, then you'll be hospitalized. Then who will take care of you? Who will take care of them? So you need to ensure you're strong first, you are able to take care of yourself first, and then you can take care of them. That's how it should go. That is what I suggested to her, and that is exactly what she's doing right now. However, it's not as simple as, okay, I've decided I'm going to keep them separate. They might end up getting a heart attack or die with depression. So I told her, do it gradually. Keep informing them that the market conditions are bad. Obviously, you have to lie on certain parameters, like I might lose my job, I might have to shift to a smaller house, I might have to, move back to India or wherever. I may not be able to stay together. You'll have to do it very tactfully over the period of time. So when it does happen that they have to actually move to another place by themselves or old age home or whatever, they are mentally prepared for it. Others will come as a shock, and that is not good. So, I'd just like to conclude by telling you that in a perfect world, it is a very bad thing to betray those who loved you, took care of you, and were there for you, especially when you were small or you're helpless or you're in need. However, that does not mean that people use this trump card that because you owe something to them, that they can take advantage of you, of your kindness, of your niceness, and destroy your peace of mind, your mental health, your happiness, your joy, suck out everything out of you, make your life absolutely miserable, just to get their pound of flesh. Is it worth it? And especially like the example I gave of that guy who ended up hospitalized and unable to work for 2 years because of his parents. Is that worth? So this is what I wanted to share with you where toxic parents are concerned. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Do you agree, disagree with what I have to say? Because I'll tell you, a lot of parents, especially Indian parents, because most of the men and women who are Indian, they take care of their parents. Westerners, they generally stay away from their parents, or they leave home after they're 18, and the parents end up either in their house or old age home. So I'm not saying all Westerners, but majority of them, their lifestyle is like this. Indians are the ones who like to live like joint families. So when you have, let's say, a very large family, yes, they can take care of them. But when it becomes husband, wife, and then you have to take care of parents, it becomes a very complicated affair, especially when they want to interfere in every area of your life. So let me know, what are your thoughts? What solution do you recommend? And have you encountered anything like this? Love to read what you have to say and your experiences. And yeah, that's all I have to say with regards to this topic. Look forward to reading your comments. This is me signing off.